Stealing the headlines across the boxing world are these guys, and everyone has an opinion on them. The main talking point: are the Paul brothers good for the attention that they bring to the sport of boxing, or are they bad for tainting the image of the sweet science? Well, today, we have your answer. First, let's understand the dynamic of the three primary combat sports and how they work. You have boxing, MMA, and of course, professional wrestling. They're almost exclusively pay-per-view and subscription based, which puts them behind a paywall. They don't have a set schedule per se, they don't follow a season of events like other sports, and they're based on solo athletes. Because of that first ingredient, the paywall, these organizations have to promote their product to you every single time. So they have to sell you on a couple of things. Number one, the legitimacy of the sport, like saying these are the best fighters in the world competing, which is why promotions use belts, so that way you have some tangible proof to that, meaning that belts don't actually mean anything at all. Another ingredient is star power, and this is where most of them tend to differ a little bit. Boxing has no single elite promotion, whereas the UFC and WWE have protected themselves. If there's a dry spell of star power, they have a built-in failsafe because fans know them as the sport itself due to their marketing. I'll give you an example. If you were a kid like me who grew up loving and watching MMA or even trained in the sport, other kids would come up to you and say things like, "Oh, bro, you train UFC, bro?" And the answer always was, and still is, no, I don't train Ultimate Fighting Championship, bro. Now, the final ingredient is narrative. This can be used in a lot of different ways, but it's absolutely crucial because it kind of ties into the other two ingredients. Aside from general star power, this is really the main reason people watch, and there's a lot of different ways to build a narrative. Now, contrary to what old boxing heads will tell you, the sport of prize fighting was built on circus-type narratives. So the more wild and crazy and gross and absurd it gets, the more it sells to casuals. And in truth, that's where the money is. Don't believe me? All right, well, let's go back in time to prove this. Fights have been sold to you from many different angles. The most common and harmless is the classic grudge match. Back in the old days of boxing, and to some more subtle degrees today, race was heavily involved. Because who doesn't love some racial violence, right? And the easiest to sell because of the absurdity and wild nature of fighting is freak show fights like David versus Goliath, and of course, Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather. Oh, and this one too. Because a casual observer's ideology is, well, golly, it only takes one punch, even though it never materializes that way because skills matter. Oh, and just to be fair, MMA has done this plenty. I mean, my God, UFC 1 was nothing but freak show fights. And it's not like Dana cleaned things up either. Under his watch, he set up James Toney versus Randy Couture, gave Brock Lesnar a title shot after going 1-1 in his first two fights. And who could forget CM Punk making his pro debut in a promotion where supposedly only the best fight the best without even a single bout as an amateur, not just in MMA, but in any martial art. All right, I think we got enough information at this point to draw a conclusion. So, are the Paul brothers good for the sport or bad? Drumroll, please. And the winner is... oh, a surprise winner. The winner is... they don't affect a fucking thing. And here's why. Let's start with how they could affect things positively. First of all, how could fans be introduced to a sport that has been around for over 100 years and created some of the most monumental athletes in sports history? The reality of that is these people don't care to get invested. If you're a casual, the sport has been right there for you to watch for years. It's not like it's been hiding somewhere where you didn't know about it. It's been there all along for you to get invested in it. You just chose not to. And watching two YouTubers in a shitty fight is not gonna change your mind. And you know what? That's completely fine. I'll give you another example. Have you ever watched a big fight with your friends where most likely you're the only one that has any kind of investment in the actual sport taking place? Don't worry, I've been there too. So anyway, you try to get your buddies to watch the other fights and see how amazing this sport is from the top down and hope they can appreciate it just like you. And what happens every single time? They don't watch any of it. They're too busy talking to other people. They're not interested in the rest of the undercard. They're there for the main event because that's all that was sold and that's all they really want to put their time and effort into. So realistically, unless someone really stands out and catches their eye, no one is getting the rub. Luckily, we actually have some proof of this where a boxer fought underneath one of the cards of the Paul brothers. Billy Joe Saunders fought during the undercard of Logan Paul KSI 2. The pay-per-view reportedly sold more than Joshua versus Ruiz, a massive success. Then in Saunders' bout versus Canelo Alvarez, one of the most popular boxers in the world, DAZN added under 500,000 subscriptions. The idea that Saunders helped to add those subscriptions is actually laughable. Look, if you're worried about some YouTuber who made fun of suicide and a known abuser getting attention in this sport, it sounds like there's a lot more serious problems there than you can solve alone. On the mixed martial arts side, so what if Jake Paul knocks out an old beat-up wrestler and makes people think MMA isn't legit? People, please, if someone is that ignorant, let them walk into an MMA gym and find out exactly how horribly wrong they are. Also, do you really want someone that ignorant and annoying in your sport? We already have enough people like that as it is. You want to know the secret to getting the Paul brothers and other freak show fights out of your life? Stop watching the fights, stop talking about them, and stop tweeting about them, please. You know they're not legit. You watch boxing, you watch MMA, you know the difference between a good fighter and a bad one. You've seen Tyron Woodley. There's a very good chance he gets knocked out by Jake Paul because you've seen the path that he's on. It shouldn't be a surprise to you, and who cares what other people say, honestly. If boxing is gonna show us anything in particular out of all the combat sports, is that the stars come and go, and they really truly don't have any effect on the sport. At the end of the day, the Paul brothers, stars, whether you like them, whether you don't, are stars. But like all stars in combat sports, they will come and they will go. This is nothing new. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.